Okay, welcome to Reconnect to Lost Dreams. I'm going to give it a few minutes for anyone that might be a few minutes late coming to log in. So I'm just going to give it a minute or two so everyone can get settled. One thing I'm going to mention in a few minutes is make sure that you have a pen and paper. So I'm going to give you a few minutes now just to make sure that you can go ahead and get a pen and paper. So if you don't have one, now would be a good time to go ahead and grab that. And please bear with me, I am losing my voice. So hopefully I make it to the end of this. So it's still early, it's 7 o'clock now, and I'll just give it another minute or two just to let everyone get situated and to come onto the call. So we'll give it a few more minutes. I see Corey has arrived. And as I said before, just go ahead and get a piece of paper and a pen so you can answer any questions and you'll have a chance to go ahead and reflect on it later on. And I'm just going to give it another minute or so for people to get situated and in case we have anyone late coming in. And I just want to check in. Let me know if you can hear me okay. On the right-hand side of the screen, there is a chat box. And I just want to make sure that the sound is clear for you. So if you could just let me know if you can hear me, just put a note on the side of the screen. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. And let me go ahead and open up my screen for you. I'm going to disable the chat at this point because I'm not going to be able to see it and I don't want you to think that I'm ignoring your questions. So I'm going to disable the chat until the end of this. I'm going to be opening up my screen shortly. Okay, so today we're going to go ahead and take some time to reconnect to lost dreams. I'm your host. My name is Amanda. You may at times see the names come onto the screen. You can disregard that. I'm part of the International Leadership Academy through Life Change the Revolution, based out of Australia. We're an international academy, and
This is based on his platform. So if you see the name Mark Bonus, not to get confused, I am here. So again, just a quick reminder, if you haven't gotten a pen and paper yet, please take a moment and go and grab something to write on, grab a pen, paper, and you're going to want to definitely take notes. This is going to be packed with information. There's going to be some exercises that you're going to want to write some things down. So I'll leave you another moment or two in case you haven't gotten a pen and paper yet. Take this time now and just grab something real quick. And again, I apologize. I'm losing my voice, so bear with me. All this crazy change of weather. Okay, so hopefully everyone has a pen and paper. We're going to go ahead and get started. I want you to take a moment and just reflect. This is going to be the basis. This is going to be what really is the structure of this webinar. We're going to start with your childhood. So I want you to think about back when you were a child, what were some of your greatest dreams? What were some of those really exciting things that you were really passionate about? Something that just made your face light up. So we've all had them. Just take a moment and think about what your biggest dreams were when you were a child. What was it that when you reflect back and you think about when you were a kid, some of the greatest things that you had, some of the greatest dreams that you had? Did you want to be a singer, a dancer, a doctor? Did you want to live in a different place? What were the things that were really exciting to you? And think about those very same dreams and what did they represent? What was the meaning behind them? If you were a singer, what was the dream was to be a singer? What was the feeling that it gave you? Was it the feeling of, you were the center of attention, that everyone just loved being around you? What did it bring up for you? You wanted to be a doctor, you wanted to help people. So what was the emotion behind the dream? What did it provide for you? Just take some time and think about that. And I want you to think about your current life, your career, relationships, what your current passion is, your current dreams. And are they similar to things that you thought that were important when you were a child? Have you lost touch with that? Is it something that is still deep inside you? Or has it changed and it shifted direction? Maybe it's even just a more mature version of the same dream. So how can you pull all of this together? So just take a moment, make sure that you've written this down, that you can just create a picture. We're going to dig into this a lot deeper. This is just something, the very basics of it, just to hold into the back of your mind and think about as we go through this exercise. There's two main things that we're going to do during this webinar. The first is we're going to explore the passion from your childhood. Commonly, as a child, we act upon what's called core passions, and we're not easily distracted like we are as an adult. We're not distracted by what other people think, or is it enough money, or is it too much money, or just life's responsibilities. We had a dream and we go after it. What's different is when we're a child, we tend to be a lot more vulnerable and we have a lot less fears. We take greater risks. Sometimes we even think that we're invincible. We're going to explore vulnerability. So when the problem is when we avoid being vulnerable, we miss out on a lot of opportunities. What happens is when we avoid being vulnerable, we're numb. So if you think about society and so many problems that we're going through as a whole, there's so many people that are on medication that are experiencing problems with alcohol or drugs. There's so many addictions in the world. Levels of obesity are increasing. All of these things are numbing emotions. The problem with that is that when we're numbing our emotions, your mind can't differentiate between positive and negative. So you're losing out on a lot of things. It's not just the negative emotions that you're numbing. You're missing out on joy and love. And by missing out on these opportunities, yes, you're playing it safe, but what's on the other side of safety? You're not taking these chances. So vulnerability is a beautiful thing. Within vulnerability, you that's where creativity, joy, love, all these things are developed in the place of vulnerability. Vulnerability is not weakness. And some people think that when you open up and you take a chance and you allow yourself to be vulnerable, that you're going to be perceived as weak, and it's not. It's a place of fullness and joy and love and wholeheartedness. And this is when you start to truly experience life. So think back again to when you were a child before you started taking on these adult responsibilities and before things happened where you can prejudge what might happen to you, and you didn't have those fears. You allowed yourself to be vulnerable. You took chances. You walked up to strangers and said hello to other children. You didn't worry if they were going to like you or not. You just did it. And these are different ways that you can be vulnerable. And to start to really bring this back into your adult life, I want to share with you the reason that I created this webinar, and it's very, very close to home to me. And I want to share with you just briefly an experience that I had when I was a child. I can remember going as far back as nursery school. I had this deep desire to help other people. My mom always used to share this story with everyone and tell people about how I had a best friend in nursery school, and she was blind. And I wanted so much for her to enjoy the same things that I enjoyed. And I made it my mission to do everything I could naturally, not forcefully, to just enjoy things with her. And my mom, I feel like I remember this because my mom has told this story so many times. But I can remember when we used to play on the monkey bars together. She was blind, but I guided her through it, and she laughed and she had fun, and it felt so good to know that I could help bring that out in someone. And this is going as far back as nursery school. It was a great experience and really to the core of who I am. I can also remember much more painful experience that I had gone through when I was a teenager. It was not anything easy, nothing that I was prepared for. But as most teenagers, 15 years old, and I decided that I wanted to become a babysitter. So I went through a neighborhood program and I got certified as a certified babysitter. Sounds pretty official, right? And they placed you with a local family in the neighborhood. So my first day there, I met the children. I met the mother, father, and they went off to work. I was left with the boy who was 9 and the girl who was 6. And I wanted to do something different, something to keep them entertained. So, of course, at first they started out just watching TV, but I kind of tricked them into cleaning their room. I made up this game and I said to them, okay, I want you each to tell me something that you lost in your room. Now, if you could imagine, their room was such a disaster. They had no floor. Of course, they definitely lost something in their room. So the trick was they had to find it, but along the way, anything that was out of place, they had to put away. And if I caught them walking past anything that was not put away, the other person won. The prize was you got to stay up 30 minutes later. Now think about this. Remember what it's like at 6 and 9 years old. 30 minutes is the most amazing thing ever. So they went through their room, put things away, looked and looked and looked for the item that they wanted to find so badly. Neither of them found what they were looking for. Their room was immaculate. And I said, okay, you both won. They each got to stay up 30 minutes later. And I mean, they just thought that was fantastic. Well, the little girl went to bed earlier because she was 6. The little boy, I helped him with his homework, and then it was time to go to sleep. He asked me to read him a bedtime story. So I did. And I sat down, I got the book out, and I started reading it. And he looks at me and says, I like you so much better than the other babysitter. And I thought, wow, I just got this kid to clean his room. Like, it's completely spotless. Like, what did I do that was so great? Apparently, I just showed them a little bit of attention, but it was more than that. And he told me that his previous babysitter, she would ask him to hold up a book when he went to sleep, and he had to read it to her. And he told me that she touched him. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I didn't know what to do. I was 15 years old. I certainly wasn't trained for what I was hearing. And he began to cry. And I explained to him, I said, thought about what I saw on TV, and I said, it's not your fault. I'm so glad that you told me. Does anyone else know? No, you're the only person that I told. I said, wow, this was a lot to take in. I mean, here I am, the first night that I meet this little boy, 9 years old, and he's telling me this. I didn't know what to do. So I called my parents, and they came over. We called his parents. They came home, and I told them what happened. And they were heartbroken, of course. And the little boy, he ended up going into counseling, and his sitter then became his grandmother because they were nervous. They were thankful and grateful, but nervous. But I just think back, and I think of this little boy, and it was such a painful experience. And on the other side of that, I knew at that age, at 15 years old, there's something there that I can have this trust and this rapport with a 9-year-old, that he felt so safe that he could open up and share such a terrible experience with me. So at 15 years old, I decided that I wanted to become a child psychologist. And I thought that I had a really special gift with children because they were so comfortable with me. There was other situations too, but this just was obviously something more than I ever imagined I was going to be faced to deal with at 15. And I sat down on a Sunday, and I remember this like it was yesterday. It's crystal clear to me. If you remember in the 80s, there was that movie Desperately Seeking Susan. Well, this took place in the 80s, and I got out the big newspaper and the red marker just like she did, and I went through the help wanted section and looked for jobs for child psychologists at 15. I thought I knew everything. I said, I don't need to go to school for this. I got this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to follow this dream, and I'm going to be a child psychologist. So this is what I did. I started calling the next day. I had enough sense to know that the psychologist would not be working on Sunday. I waited till Monday after school. What is this, 10th grade? I waited till after school and I called them. And I applied for the job. And, back then there's no email. You call and you make an appointment for your interview. And I was so upset because they laughed at me. They had the nerve to question me and ask me how old I was. Can you imagine? I mean, I thought I learned everything. I thought I knew it all. And they laughed at me. They said, I'm sorry, but you have to go to college first. Well, college never happened, and I had a very difficult childhood. I was legally emancipated at 16. I left home to stay with a friend to finish high school. My father was extremely abusive. My mom was mentally ill. And I grew up very fast. I was working when I was in high school. As soon as I graduated, I had 2 jobs. I was fortunate enough to have friends that supported me that I could stay with, and by 18, I moved out and I was paying rent, working 2 jobs, paying rent, and still taking care of my mother. I was very fortunate. I landed a job at the bank. I moved up quickly in the investigation department soon after to work in law, and I managed a law firm and worked in law and finance for the last almost 20 years. This brings me to where I am today and why I made this webinar. My dream, my passion was not to work in finance, was not to work in law. My dream was to work with people and to help people and to be able to make a difference in someone's life. So for the last 5 years, I've gone through schooling and I was able to really find myself to when I found coaching, it was everything that I was looking for. When I was working in corporate, I was not happy. I was missing things in my life. I felt empty. I just knew that there had to be more. When I discovered coaching, it was like I reconnected to who I was. I discovered my dream. I found my life purpose, and it was really who I was all along. I just got so wrapped up in doing what I had to do and what I was supposed to do and taking care of bills and life's responsibilities. I forgot who I was. When I slowed down and I took chances and I allowed myself to be vulnerable, I reconnected to who I am authentically. And at that point, that's where I found my life purpose. So I share this story with you so openly because I want you to see how for me, it's come full circle to who I was all along when I was a child. It's a different story. Yes, when I was younger, I thought I was going to be a child psychologist. Now I'm a life coach, but that's okay. It's a different version, but the same purpose. And I feel fulfilled. I feel happy. I feel overjoyed. And it's everything I was meant to do all along. What we're going to do is I'm going to work with you together in this process, and I want to explore with you what your childhood dreams were. And this is going to be a time for you to reflect, to slow down, and just reconnect to yourself. So in case you joined us late, there's going to be a lot of writing for you to do here. Make sure you have a pen and paper. I mentioned it in the beginning. I'm going to mention it again now. This is where it's going to get really interesting. And I want to make sure that you don't miss anything. So I'm just going to take a moment. I'm going to pause for a moment and make sure that you, like I said, get the pen and paper. Don't think that you can remember all this because it's going to be a lot of work. And it's something that you're going to want to reflect on. So go ahead and get that pen and paper. For any of you that are still here, just take this moment, slow down, take a deep breath and clear your mind. You might want to close your mind, close your eyes during this exercise. Make sure you're in a peaceful place that you can focus. Let's get started. I want you to think about when you were 8 or 9 years old, go back to your childhood. What was life like? Think about it. What did you enjoy? Take a moment and write down what was life like at 8 or 9 years old. Hmm. While you're thinking about that, who were your friends when you were 8 or 9 years old? What were your friends like? Their personality? What were you like when you were with them? What did you do together? What did you talk about? What was life like? I want you to think about when you were 8 or 9 years old, who was the adult that positively impacted your life? Who was your role model when you were 8 or 9 years old? Take a moment and write these things down and just reflect on this time. I want you to think about when you were a child. What was your greatest achievement? What were you most proud of? When you think back to your childhood, what is that one story that you want to tell everyone about that you are so proud of? What was an accomplishment that you made when you were a child? Filled you with joy. What was it? Hmm. Think about that feeling of passion that you had. What were you excited about when you were 8 or 9? Something that you just couldn't wait to do. It just made you feel so alive. Maybe it was different than what your achievement was. Maybe it was something else. Maybe it was the same. What's your greatest passion? Just take some time. Make sure that you're writing these things down. It's going to be very important for you to be able to go back and reflect on this. I want you to think about what was your dream? When you were a child, what did you think that you were going to accomplish in your future? What did you strive for? What was important to you? Think about when you were a child, what really just you had dreams and hopes for. Just imagine that age, 8 years old. Really think about who you were at that age. Think about what you were doing, what was important to you. What was that dream that just meant the world to you at 8 years old? Maybe you had one dream, maybe you had many dreams. I want you to think about a dream that you were not able to fulfill as a child or as an adult, something that you were unable to pursue. Maybe the dream faded out, you changed your mind, life got in the way. Doesn't matter the reason, but what was a dream that you had as a child that you did not pursue? Really think about that one. What dream from your childhood was not pursued, was not fulfilled? Okay, we'll move on. What was a passion that you had when you were a child that you lost touch with? A passion that you had, maybe you enjoyed playing the piano and somewhere along the line you stopped. Maybe you enjoyed fishing and you stopped. Maybe you liked walks on the beach, but you stopped. What was it that you really liked to do? Did you like to play sports? What was it that just brought you so much joy, so much excitement? And you stopped. No, I'm writing this down. This is important. What passion did you not continue as an adult? Okay, we're going to move on. It's important that you give yourself permission and accept who you are today. It doesn't matter what you are not able to complete from your past. Just accept who you are today. And you are who you've become because of your past. If there's a dream that you had that you did not fulfill, or a passion that was lost along the way, it doesn't mean that you did something wrong. It doesn't mean that you failed. It just meant there was something else that was intended for you at that time. So it's important that you give yourself permission to accept who you are today because of it. And love yourself. And accept that everything that you've been through, every obstacle that you've overcome, it provided you the strength and the courage to be where you are now. It's okay that whatever got lost along the way or whatever got put aside, it's okay because it made you who you are today. I want you to think about some of those things that may have distracted you, an obstacle that you had to break through, and look inside of it and look for the gift within the story and embrace it. I'm going to reflect back to the story that I shared with you with the little boy. I could have looked at that very differently. That was not something I was ready for at 15 to hear. I was not trained to hear that. I was not a professional. I was 15 years old. I could have chosen at that time to be upset by it. And of course I was. Don't get me wrong. But I knew that there was more. I knew there was a gift within that pain. Yes, I cried, and yes, I was upset, but I knew that there was something there. I knew that I needed to follow through with that. Yes, life got in the way, and I didn't get to follow through that dream on the timeline that I thought was going to happen at that time. But it was a part of me, and it's something I'll never forget. And it's not, it's unfortunate, it's horrible, it's devastating to hear the story that I did so vividly, and it's something I will never forget, and it will always be a part of my heart, my soul. But I couldn't hold on to it as pain. I had to find the gift. My childhood, being forced to leave home at 16, I could have been a victim. I could have said, my life is horrible. I could have had a lot of different stories, but I chose to move forward. And because of everything that I learned the hard way, and it was not easy, there was no one giving me direction on how to do things. I learned. But now, from the lessons that I have those lessons to share with other people. That's my gift. So I want you to find within your obstacles, within the pain, within the whatever struggles that you've had in your life, how has that made you who you are today? And how can you embrace it and love it and hold it dear to your heart? Because that's why you are who you are today. Find the gift. This is very important. I'm going to just pause for a minute and let you just think over all these questions. They're on the screen if you need to reflect on anything. All of this is very important before we move forward. This is the core of everything that we need in this process. So just take some time, even if you're done writing, I want you to just mentally reflect on your past and on your present. I want you to really think about yourself, and I want you to not only embrace yourself right now, but love yourself. Put the pen down, put the paper down, put your arms around you and hug yourself. And just give yourself that permission right now to accept who you are inside and out. Knowing what you know now, what would you tell your younger self? What knowledge do you have that you can share with the child in you, the younger version of who you are? The one who had those dreams and goals and passion. Coming from the person you are today and the gifts that you have, what would you tell that same person, that younger version of you? Mm, it's such a gift to share. Make sure you write that down. What you would tell your younger self. Okay, we're going to move on to the second part of this exercise. And we're going to discover what your core vulnerability style is and embrace your vulnerability. So as you can imagine, that's why we started with the version of who you were as a child, because when you were a child, you let yourself be vulnerable. And then we learn lessons and we get scared and things get in the way and we don't want to get hurt and now we're no longer vulnerable. But there's two very different styles of vulnerability. And there's two different core styles. So we're going to learn about those and then go through a brief exercise to discover what your core vulnerability is because you'll understand why you make the decisions that you do. And once you bring awareness to it, it's going to help you open up more and reconnect to who you are authentically. So just to go over vulnerability, some areas that you might experience vulnerability or hesitation even of being vulnerable is asking for help, asking for that promotion that you know that you deserve, getting outside your comfort zone, initiating contact. It's almost funny when you're a child, you could just walk up to another child on the playground and start playing a game. But as an adult, if you think of social settings, parties, things like that, it's so hard to just walk up to someone and just start talking. You got to think about what are they going to, what are you going to say to them, and what are they going to think of you, and all these things run through your head. But when you were a child, you just asked to play the game. So that's a very interesting comparison from childhood to now. There's two different types of vulnerability. Vulnerability is either fear-driven or shame avoidant. Both of those are naturally within us, but one of them is going to come up stronger for you. So I want you to ask yourself, what if I was homeless? No one wants to be homeless. It's a very, very scary thought. But different triggers are going to come up for different people. If you're fear-driven, you may be asking yourself, will I be in harm's way? I don't want to be isolated. I'm afraid of deprivation. I don't want to lack comfort. I'm afraid of the lack of security. These are all fear-driven responses. The next is shame avoidant. I don't want to be seen as a failure. If I was homeless, I couldn't hold my head up. I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be seen as inadequate. I don't want to lose how I'm known. I don't want to lose respect of others. These are two very different sides of vulnerability. So if you ask yourself, what if I was homeless? The initial thoughts and the fears that come to mind, you may have a little bit of both, but one of them is going to overpower you. And one of them is going to be what drives the decisions that you make today. We're going to go through an exercise. I want you to sit down and take a moment and think about 5 worries that you face. 5 worries that you have. It doesn't matter if they're realistic or unlikely. They could be something so far-fetched, but it's a worry that you personally have. What is something that comes to mind that you're worried about, afraid of, don't want to face? This is going to take a few minutes. So I'm going to give you probably about, let's say, 2 minutes or so to answer. This one people usually get stuck on. So 5 different versions. And while you're writing, I'm just going to switch screens real quick. I should have done that. I don't want to lose the screen. Okay. What are 5 things that you worry about, avoid, don't want to deal with? Feel judgment around? What comes up for you? Give one more moment. Okay. From those 5 worries that you have, what is the emotion that's driving the worry, driving the thought, driving the fear? Think about the emotion that goes along with it and write it beside each one. So for every worry, what is the emotion behind that? And I'll give you 2 minutes to answer. And 1 more minute. What is the emotion and the thought that goes behind the worry, behind the fear? Okay. And I want you to think about the answers that you have. Think about the emotion that's driving the fear, driving the worry, driving the thought. And on a whole, not each individual one, because you might have a little bit of both, but on a whole, based on your responses, do you feel that those responses are fear driven or shame avoidant? Remember, fear driven is a little bit more of the harm, the isolation. Shame is more about how others are seeing you, not being seen as a failure, not being judged, losing your status, how people are seeing you is shame. Fear is, on some levels, a little bit more of a material type thing, or something that's more tangible. It's not dealing with the individual. It's either circumstance or possession. So do you think that you're fear driven or shame avoidant? People who are fear driven, if this would apply to you, they often form emotional alliances and find strength in numbers. It's enhanced by estrogen, which means that most of the times people who are fear driven, it is women. And it's diminished by testosterone, which has been proven in studies, so it's less common in men. Someone who is fear driven usually is seeking a partner who is powerful, protective, and generous. Ironically, the person who is shame avoidant projects power, projects protection, is generous, and a provider. They seek a partner who appreciates these traits. Testosterone enhances competitiveness. So men are more likely to be shame avoidant, and because of the competitive nature, it increases the likelihood of shame. So I'm curious your results and if that applied to you. From my experience in going through this test with other clients that I have, I found that the studies did align with the people that I was speaking with. And again, it's based on a whole. Not every single response is going to be down the line fear or down the line all shame. But as a whole, what drives you is usually one or the other is more strong, more it influences your decisions. So knowing what is influencing your decision and where it comes from helps you to identify why you're not pursuing what you want to do, why you're not stepping out of the box, why you're not giving yourself the permission to love fully, why you're not taking that chance, that risk, knowing what your core style of vulnerability is key. So I want you to now take a moment and tell me, or write down, I should say, who you are today. What are your passions of today, your personality, your dreams of today? Who are you? What do you stand for? What is important to you? Write that down. What makes you feel alive today? What are dreams that you're trying to pursue now, or that you're in the process of pursuing, or that you have pursued today? What is the strongest personality trait in who you are today? Take some moment on that one. And this is not the time, and I should have said this before, to talk about what you haven't done. This is not the time to talk about what you don't like. This is the time to embrace who you are, the amazing person that is within you. What is the greatness that is in you today? What is possible from who you are today? How do you think that other people describe you? It's interesting because sometimes others see us differently than we see ourselves. So think about some of the things that your friends, family, coworkers, what people say to you as far as your traits and your personality. How do others see you? What are you not seeing in yourself that others see? Think about that. Sometimes that's the gift right there. When you're avoiding vulnerability and you're avoiding taking those chances and stepping out of your comfort zone, you're not seeing the amazing person that you are. But others have seen it all along. What are some things that other people have shared with you? Hmm. But you've heard a lot of great things, and you don't give yourself credit for them. And sometimes you might even doubt them, but others see it. How can you start to see these amazing traits that others see in yourself? Think about that. What is a part of your childhood dream that you want to invite into the present you? What's part of your childhood dream that maybe you pursued it, maybe you didn't, maybe you lost touch with, you forgot about it, whatever the case may be. What is part of that childhood dream that you had that you want to invite into who you are today? It could be another version, it could be a more mature version, it could have a little twist to it. But what part of that do you want to What do you want to invite? Do you want to revisit? Think about those dreams that you had, that you lost touch with. How does it reflect in your soul, your authentic self, deep within yourself, who you were at the core to who you are now? What version of that story feels right to you? What does it mean to you to live authentically? Your personal description, your life. What does it mean to you to live authentically? What part of you have you been unwilling to be vulnerable with and be seen? What have you been holding back on? What is dying to be born inside of you? What do you want others to know about you that they've never seen? What is waiting to come to life? By not exploring this and allowing yourself to be vulnerable, how is this affecting your life? Write it down. How is this affecting your life? What would your life be like if you invited in more vulnerability, more passion, more of your dreams that you lost and now reconnected to? What's possible? What would change in your life? And how would you feel? When you woke up in the morning, would it be different? Going through the course of your day and connecting to that part of you and allowing yourself to feel it and to do it and to pursue it, what would that be like? What commitment are you willing to do today to make to yourself so that this is possible? How will you incorporate more vulnerability and passion into your life? And what part of your dream are you going to reconnect to? What's the action step that you can take to make this possible? I'm going to go ahead and switch screens so I can open up the comment box. What's very important is I want you to jump in and state in the comments what your commitment is to yourself. When you just keep it to yourself, it doesn't seem possible. But when you start sharing it with others, it seems possible. The next step after announcing it to others is making a plan. Then it's no longer a dream, it's doable. We're going to take the first step today, and you're going to share with each other what your commitment is to yourself. So just give me a second, and I'm going to go over and switch screens and open up the comment box. And just take a few minutes to state what you're committing to for yourself. Okay, great. And over the course of the next week, I want you to take some time and reflect on these questions. Take note of what truly excites you and make note of it. Ask a few friends, a few close friends, what they think your dreams are. Your friends and family might see things in a completely different light, and it can expand for you what's possible. So go ahead and work on that for the week. But I also want to invite you, if you want to explore deeper and consider the coaching process, what's possible. If you're ready to overcome your fears, let go of your doubts, overcome the hurdles, and once and for all get out of your comfort zone, while you're in a safe place with unconditional support, in a judgment-free zone where we can work together as a team on this journey. Just for you, I'm going to open up something that I've never done before. And I'm reserving just a handful of strategy sessions at a deeply discounted rate. Normally for a 1-hour session, starts at $120. I'm going to open this up to you for just $29.99. It's only for webinar attendees. It's only for today. It expires at midnight. If you go to the website, you can go to www.empowerlifecoach.com/discount. It's going to walk you right through. You can sign up, purchase it, and go straight to the calendar. There's only a few limited spots available. But if you're ready and you want to dig deeper and you want to just really close the deal, you're right on the cusp, you know what you want, then go ahead, sign up for the strategy session. Like I said, it's a deeply discounted offer. I've never done this before. $29.99 for 1 hour. I hope that you enjoyed this webinar. I hope you got a lot of information from it. I hope that you were able to connect to your dreams. And it's been great sharing this with you. So I'm going to go ahead and shut down the webinar now, and I wish you a great night. Thank you for joining.